Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Merce Labordena. Merce is a senior manager for funding and policy at Smartenergy. Smartenergy, you'll know, a very well-known business in the hydrogen market, indeed the renewables market, where they've been operating and building renewables projects for many years, and now building hydrogen projects, mainly in Portugal, Spain, Germany, and Italy. Pipeline of about 15 different projects across derivatives such as SAF and ammonia and methanol. So with that introduction, welcome, Merce. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much, Nadine, for the invitation.
Yeah, and thanks. You're obviously the senior partner of World Hydrogen Week, where you and your colleagues will be speaking, which is fast approaching us, 9th to the 13th of October. I've been involved in the Congress and developing that Congress with us as very strong partners. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Sometimes we've got a lot of people coming, and clearly hydrogen has been developing now rapidly, I guess, for the last few years. What are some of your thoughts on the key challenges and with your breadth of your projects across a number of different geographies and different end use cases? What are you learning, and what are some of your thoughts you want to share about your projects and developing that kind of quite strong pipeline?
Of course. So regarding of pipeline, as you mentioned, we have been developing solar PV plants around 11 years, and we added to our portfolio the hydrogen plants like about 4 years ago already. And we already have quite a broad portfolio of H2 plants, around 2.2 gigawatts in Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Germany, and also around like a very different type of end users. We are producing, or we will produce, the hydrogen for combustion, like for the ceramic industries, but also for ammonia and SAF. We are already having conversations with many off-takers, signed several MOUs with them, and the projects that we're having are, of course, in different stages of development. And we are going to see some of them built like very soon, hopefully, in maybe some like very few years, because some of them already acquired some public funds, and we are very confident that they are going to be built, and we are very excited for that.
Yeah.
Now that has not been an easy path. I mean, has been a quite difficult one. And it will be still. And that is because, well, on one hand, to produce renewable hydrogen or derivatives from renewables, the first thing you need is renewables. And for that, you need renewables at scale. We, of course, have a lot of experience, like 11 years deploying PV plants across different geographies, but it's still, that's very, very challenging. So one of the things that we would ask governments is to ease the path for grid connections and for availability of land for renewables. That's the first thing. We need solar, we need wind. Other challenges that we have been facing maybe is, well, for us it's very important to have like connections with the off-takers like very early on in the process, because it's extremely important to identify their needs and also the infrastructure surrounding them. Because potentially the hydrogen or derivatives won't be only for them, for their own processes, but of course for export. So the identification of very good infrastructure and ports, for example, is very important. And for that, we also have like several projects cooking up around ports in Portugal, in Spain, and in Italy. We are very excited for them as well. And I think one of the challenges that we have been facing, or at least put a lot of work into, is to engage with these off-takers and to try to communicate the importance for them to do this transition. Of course, they are waiting, or they are a little bit afraid, like cost-wise, because that would be for them like very like important challenge. And to get the buy-in from their chief investment officer or financial officers, of course. But it's something that they need to do. They need to do the switch. And for that, it takes time, meetings, etc., for them to try to, or to communicate about the importance for them to do the switch, and the fact that we are here to help them all along the process. And by doing that all along these years, because it takes years, we have been grateful to sign with many of them several MOUs. and we just cannot wait to see the projects with them being built.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen you've had some projects with the ceramics industry, and I assume there it's around methane replacement and combustion in kilns. And they obviously have to make a capital investment on their side to handle the hydrogen. So that's I assume also part of the challenge is it extends right through the value chain.
So that actually will need to come like in steps. I mean, you just cannot do a substitution 100% the day one. So for that, at least for the ceramic industry, we will start with small percentages of renewable hydrogen into, for example, the cogeneration or the kilns, etc. And then also learning by doing bit by bit, they will see the need, and also they will feel more confident and just decide to gather like higher percentages of renewable hydrogen. But indeed, that's challenging because when talking about for example, ceramic industry, it's not only about one company or two. We are talking about clusters, and clusters are dozens of companies, dozens. And we are already having like several MOUs with around 15 of them in different locations. But the potential for those ceramic clusters is huge, is enormous. We are talking about the gigawatt scale, obviously. But again, the building of these projects of at the gigawatt scale, those start like with little steps, like 50 megawatts or 100 megawatts. Let's go to 200. That's the most realistic, scenario that we are seeing. And for those projects that I mentioned that they are going to be built in the next years, these also are like pretty, say, small or lower or smaller than we are seeing now in the news. But those are essential to learn how to do that. If these projects don't start building up, then there's no way that we just can see around the corner those gigawatt scale projects.
Yeah, I see that. I like that phrase you use, learn by doing. It certainly is apt, and it's interesting to see the scale of the cluster of potentially quite small producers, but actually, you start to aggregate them together, you start to have big gigawatt scale usage. But it's about building that demand profile for what is, after all, a new product. You're not really providing necessarily a drop in fuel. You can obviously mix it.
Correct. In this way, I believe that also we manage to reduce the risks, because we are not relying on a single off-taker. We are relying on dozens of them. So with that, we also manage the risk profile.
And with the SAF part, you mentioned, I think, SAF before, and obviously you're involved in policy and funding. So you must have been heartened to see the compliance market for non-biogenic SAF starting from 2030. Have you seen a reaction to that in your project pipeline? And what are the challenges specific to SAF that you're facing?
We will continue with our SAF projects, developing our SAF projects, because we really believe in it. And our CEO, Jorge Mahmoudi, he's a fan of aviation. He's a fan of SAF. So we simply need to make these projects. Doesn't exist a scenario we just cannot make them. So it's already like personal. We are going to build them. And for that, we are already having conversations with several off-takers that they emit CO2. And we plan to use that CO2 to produce SAF. But again, also that's the question of the CO2 price, because who knows? That's very difficult. But we are also very confident that at the end of the day, our regulation and policy will come together, will come into place. And that's something that we anyhow need to do. We need to decarbonize aviation. We need to decarbonize heavy industry. That's something that we must do. So starting from the basis that that's something that needs to be done, that all those processes for aviation, heavy transport, and also heavy industry needs to decarbonize. Policy and regulation will come together somehow, and we'll put all the pieces of the puzzle together. That's also why we are very, very engaged with associations, with policymakers, to try to, pass on our knowledge to them to shape up these regulations. because we bring the experience, we already bring the hurdles with all this conversation with the takers and also with the national governments and also regulatory agencies, national-wise. Yeah. And we try to be very engaged with them, with the policymakers, to try to shape up the best regulatory environment, not only for us, of course, but for the rest of the players.
And in terms of sources of sort of biogenic CO2, where do you see sources coming from?
For SAF, for example, some of the projects that we are designing are around the cement industry. So we are having conversations with them to use the CO2 that they emit for SAF production.
Yeah, makes sense. Excellent. I mean, the variety of projects, I guess, is amazing. It must be super interesting in terms of all of these different end uses, and from burning hydrogen to make ceramics to combining it with CO2 coming off cement plants to make e-fuels or SAF. Tremendous variety and development. I guess that's complexity as well is also hard to handle in terms of the funding side and communicating it to the market. Obviously, you've been very successful in attracting finance, and you have a strong, I guess, pipeline of finance coming into the business. What are some of the sentiments like currently in financial markets for this sector? Is there some patient capital there available?
So in the sense of acquiring public finance, that's something that when having conversations with investors, that's something that they want to see. Mm-hmm. So if investors want to see that, we will bring to them. And that's why we are working now with regional governments, mostly from Portugal and Spain, and also from Italy, to acquire those public funds for H2 projects. Yeah. And not only regional funds or national funds from the recovery funds and other types, but also we are very eager to see how the H2 bank will look like everybody else. We know more or less like the broad guidelines, but we don't know exactly how it look like. And now for these auction pilots, the pilot auctions, we are seeing that that's not enough, that there will be like very few hundreds of megawatts. That will be very, very few for Europe. So that's why we are also having conversations with the governments to see whether we can capitalize on their budgets to bring public funds to our projects and not rely that much on the H2 bank, because although now we will start with pilot auctions, that's not a lot. Yeah. We hope to see the EU to increase the budgets in the next round.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, certainly. It's going to be the devil's going to be in the detail of the functioning of the H2 bank. So we look forward to watching that with interest too. So Merce, many thanks for taking the time out of your day to share your thoughts. Thanks again for the support that Smartenergy has given us, and we look forward to the World Hydrogen Week and seeing the Smartenergy team again and engaging with the industry right across the board. So many thanks, Merce. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Stay safe. Thank you very much. Cheers.